Wargaming Tactica. What is the unlock? And as a player, as a wargaming enthusiast, how do we do it? I'm going to be presenting this important Tactica independent of the wargaming system. You're going to be able to fill in your current system and figure out how you can utilize it best. But for a frame of reference, as context, I want to pull us back in time. A younger Fritz, Warhammer 40,000, 5th edition, early 6th edition, somewhere in there. I mean, all these editions are just crunching into my head. And Space Wolves had just been released. This was the first Ward Codex that absolutely broke everything, but it was just released. And the Games Workshop of today is nothing compared to how it previously was. Right now, honestly, Games Workshop is on top of everything. They're releasing new miniatures, releasing new kits, updating the hobby, campaign books. All the armies and factions are continually updated and have stuff pushed out there. You know, whether you think it's good or not, it's out there. Previously, Games Workshop supported nothing. I mean, the Dark Eldar Codex back in the day, by the time they got an update, it was 15 years later on there. Space Wolves were like a decade. So within 10 years, no updates, nobody playing Space Wolves, a new codex drops. And the Battle for Salvation tournament at the time, literally the decks had just dropped and people were playing it. I was playing my Krons for this tournament, and it was easily half Space Wolf players. And they had released a number of new miniatures. This wasn't just like, oh, Longfangs again and a Lehman Russ. I mean, they were all there. But you had the Trickster, you had an update to the Blood Claws. They were the first to be able to take the Laz Plaz combo, bringing that back on Razorbacks. You also had the ability to take Thunderwolf Cavalry. I mean, a lot of stuff that's absolute standard now was literally new at the time. And I remember playing in this tournament, being very excited. I was going to face Space Wolves again, have my space robots, my undead Necrons, back when the Star Gods were actual Star Gods. Some things I just can't get past in my mind, and I'm a pretty flexible and easygoing guy on there, but the Star Gods will always be Star Gods. Not this kind of rewrite Necrons working out with Blood Angels and being friends to the Imperium and stuff. Space Wolves got destroyed across the entire spectrum, and this was maybe a 60-person tournament. They got obliterated. They were awful. And I was like, where's the hype? You know, this is supposed to be a war decks, and everyone's going crazy about it. And these were, some of them were new players to the game. Some were existing Space Wolf players, but there were a lot of veteran players. So literally 1 month later, we go over to Toy Wiz. And this time I'm playing my Samhan Warhost, which out of all my 40K armies, even to this day, if you were like, Fritz, we need you for the team. Moment's notice. We need you for the team. I'm grabbing my Eldar off the shelf. I'm grabbing the Warhost off the shelf on there. I feel very confident and know how to play it. And look, I love playing Grey Knights. I love Tyranids. I love my Chaos Space Marines, Berserkers of Scalathrax. I mean, all that's in there. But proficiency, literal life hours sunk into playing an army, so many hours, just we can't even tally it in the great tomes of Terra on there. Just Samhan Warhost. And we go to Toy Wiz. Tons of Space Wolf players, a lot of the same, a lot of new Space Wolf players, and they destroyed. I got destroyed out of the 4 games. 3 I got destroyed, and the last I was able to win just with technology. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? I mean, this is only, admittedly at the time we were going to tournaments pretty much every month, being a very competitive player. Literally within 1 month, the Codex had been unlocked. And anytime there's a new rule set in a wargaming system, a new faction, a significant update, you know, not just here's a new unit, a significant rewrite, it takes the players a little while to figure out what's the most optimal configuration. We're not looking at narrative. We're not looking at fluff. We're not looking at the fact that in the narrative, Terminator armor is still very rare. You know, maybe 100 suits in the chapter. So if you're playing a game and you've got, 30 suits on there, that's like incredible. You know, put all the narrative aside completely. You're just looking what units are going to wreck face, what is the best. Over time, through tournament play, not so much forums these days, although Bolter and Chain Store is still very active. YouTube has sped up the unlock tremendously. It's insane. You quickly figure out, the community quickly figures out, hey, here's the number one list. Don't bother playing this army unless you bring these units on there. And here's the tier 2 list, but it's nowhere near as good as tier 1. You know, we saw this recently with Iron Hands. Literally, the unlock was like a few hours after it was released. And this cycle, this wargaming cycle of an unlock, now we're going to branch out to all systems. It does develop organically. It does kind of happen through players playing and feedback and communication and reporting tournament results and analyzing. I mean, there is very much a science to it. So how can we speed up that unlock? And on a side note, I have to say the unlock, I believe, for 40K right now is pretty much a couple of days after release. I mean, Sisters, they're not even really out yet. They're unlocked on there. You know, this is sped up by the rush to be first on YouTube with leaks and promotions and stuff. So often by the time something's released, you already know what's good and what's garbage. So the unlock formula on here, and you're going to fit this into your war game. And that's not to say you can't play narrative. That's not to say you can't play themed or one-sided mission. Absolutely, I encourage that on there. A lot of the armies that I enjoy are more narrative themed, but if we're going for the unlock, we're going for it on there. Points, battle value, power level, whatever, gold pieces. Every wargaming system has a currency, support points, chain of command, right? Some sort of currency that, in theory, we play a game with equal amounts of currency, and it should be somewhat fair on the tabletop. Or if we're playing a mission that is unbalanced, you know, attacker versus defender and ambush, generally speaking, the more points something costs, you know, squadron points, X-Wing, whatever, the more powerful it is. It's an attempt to balance the game, taking into account all the variables. Rule number 1, never pay full points. Rule number 1, quantity beats quality in most dice-based games, especially if it's a D6-based game. That's why we see a lot of modern war games going to different types of activation dice. We see multi-turn activation, so it's not you go, I go. If it's a you go, I go D6-based system, this is ripe for exploitation on there. It's a stress point of the game. Since we're only limited to a D6, even if we have mechanics like exploding D6s on there. So, you know, to hit, I do damage, I roll a 6. Oh, I get to roll another die, I get another 6. Oh, it's exploding again, I roll another one on there. That's an attempt to keep the existing simplified D6 rule set, but spread out the variables a little bit on there. How you beat that is just roll more D6s. Even if you need 6s to have something magical happen, if I roll 50, 60 dice, I'm going to blow up your super tank, your super robot, your super whatever. So the first thing I look at is just whatever the attack possibilities are for the unit. Volume of dice, whether that's shooting, whether that's assault, whether that's magical powers, whether that's firing my crossbows, my lasers, my torpedoes, my cluster missiles, whatever it's going to be, long-range missiles. How can I get the most on the table? The second is how can I get the most on the table for the cheapest amount of points? The second is to only pay points for stuff that you're guaranteed. Meaning every unit is going to have a base profile with some sort of ability on there, which says, hey, if you just show up, face the opponent, and shoot, here's the volume of dice that you can generate. Now, of course, being a war game, it is narrative. There's going to be some way to modify that. Maybe I spend a special power. You know, I spend an engine point, and now I can roll an extra 2 dice for this turn. Or I can utilize my Berserker's Fury and roll an extra die this turn. Those abilities add to your dice pool, but they're not consistent. So you need to look and say, the dice that are consistent on there, if I add other stuff to the unit and it costs more points on there and it's not a consistent increase, you don't do it. You don't do it. So if I have... we're just using an example. If I have a gun that shoots at strength 1, my infantry squad is strength 1 for, 2 points a model. Okay, calculate it up. If I can get something overcharged, which means for an extra 2 points per model, I get one special shot, and that, charges it to strength 2. You don't take that. You don't. I'd rather spend those points on more strength 1 dudes, extra units, and have more volume of dice for something that will utilize once, because I'm going to utilize the rest over every single game turn. Here's another example of exactly not what to do. Highlights it perfectly. And I still did it. I have much more control over myself now, but not really. So when I play Tyranids, I love this idea of like a kaiju list, right? These big, massive space bugs. I have 12 Carnifexes on there. These are like giant, massive tank bugs. Think of the tanker bugs from Starship Troopers. They wreck face on there, but they are mad expensive in points. So in some editions of 40K, you had the ability to regenerate on there. Feel no pain, other side rules, but the regeneration was after you've taken wounds, and a lot of these Carnifexes throughout the editions would have different levels of wounds. If you take wounds, but the model isn't dead, at the start of your turn, you roll a d6 for every wound taken. If you roll a 6, you get that wound back. Hey, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. Regeneration, especially if I have a 4 wound model and I take 3 wounds, that's 3 dice. Maybe I'll roll a 6, or every other turn I'll roll a 6. I get some wounds back. But it was 60 points a Carnifex, and I'm taking 12. And I'm upgrading for an ability that I might not use. 1, I got to roll a 6 on a d6. And 2, my Carnifex runs forward, you shoot it dead. I don't get to regenerate, and that's 60 points gone. So on another side note, my Chaos Lord, he's all blinged up with war gear, and it's crazy. So I'm admitting to you, I break the rules because I go for the narrative. But if we're looking the unlock, you're looking at all the units in your faction, and you're just slash and burn what is the most effective. Don't take upgrades you're not going to use. Don't take upgrades that are what if the unit's alive, or upgrades that have a permanent non-permanent ability. For 1 turn, you can pop this off and do extra damage. Well, what do I do for the other 4 turns? And at an extra 2 points a model, I can get 40 more models on the table, over the 60 that I have. It's just the dice that you can control on there. Now let's talk about part 2 on here. Discovering the unlock. Mastering the unlock. Part of this is just getting games in. That's just where it's at. And that could be based on where you are in life right now with other commitments and responsibilities. That can be a little bit challenging. And certainly the time that we do have to play a war game, especially if it's part of a bigger club where you have pickup games, admittedly, honestly, nothing's more annoying than arriving to the gaming store and that guy is there who plays the worst, beardy, most absolute worst lists for your system, and you're like, I drove an hour and a half. I've got to play somebody, and this is my only game for the month. So you want to be able to unlock quickly or understand the unlocks and assess it. How do we improve that? How do we push that forward if we're not just going to raw play games? And a number of years ago, I can admit to it right now, this is one of the reasons why I had to leave DDO, because things were getting so out of control. With that, part of it is just my obsessive personality. I mean, sometimes, most of the time, that's a good thing. A lot of times, it's not a really good thing. Jawa Balls and I would start, we'd either do the Giant Hold raid or whatever the board was with the desert where you're searching for the Ancient Heart super rare drop. We'd spend hours. We're grown men. We got to go to work the next day, and it's 4 a.m. We were going to end at midnight, but it's 4 a.m. And he's like, Jawa's like, I got to get up by 6 and leave for work. And I'm like, well, look, we've been up this long. Let's just power through it and do it. So I say that playing way too much, in terms of games, unlocking mad stuff for DDO, finding a more efficient, a more balanced approach. Plus, if it's more balanced, you can play more gaming systems. So here's the approach that I would recommend. You're going to play a game. And you're going to play with your army, the units that you've selected. You're going to play 3 rounds on there. Let's say the game lasts 6 rounds, or maybe it's not a timed game on there. A lot of new war games are moving towards non-timed games, so they don't force you artificially into the action. You have more tactical choices. Whatever it's going to be, you're going to play 3 rounds, and you're going to be as decisive as possible doing that. And after the 3rd round, it could be 4 rounds, could be 5 rounds, depends on how fast a round is and how detailed. But after a certain number of rounds, you're going to call the game with you and your opponent. And you're going to sit down and look and say, okay, logically speaking, if this concluded to its most logical conclusion, who would win the game? And this isn't actually winning the game. This isn't who's going to be better or not. An honest assessment. This was a training technique, a wargaming training technique that I used to use extensively when I was playing competitively 40K and playing X-Wing miniatures competitively a while ago. This is what vaulted me up to a lot of wins that's out there. Let's just play 3 turns, okay? How much damage did I do based on the units, positioning, reset, play again, reset. You can get in an average gaming session. If you play 1 game, I can get in 3 or 4 games for that. So going over a buddy's house on a Friday night and just saying, like, look, we're just going to play till turn 3 and let's see what happens. You will find out really fast the efficiency, the brutal efficiency of your army list, build, whatever you're playing on there, and be able to make those adjustments, essentially testing the units, testing to see if your unlocked strategies are true. So this way you beat down on that learning curve as opposed to playing a full game, 3 or 4 times a week. Obviously, if you have the time and inclination to do that, that is most efficient. But if we're trying to cut down that learning curve and maximize the biggest unlock time, that is the way to do it. I want to push out that for the most part, the unlock is competitive play. It is tournament play. It is trying to be the most efficient. And look, I'm just going to try and steamroll over you. Nothing wrong with that, certainly if that's how you want to enjoy your wargaming system. But as I am, be open to narrative play. Be open to creating something interesting and special on the tabletop. But I wanted to push this podcast, this vlog, up to my archive, because if you're a narrative player and you're not aware of the unlock and you go up against someone that is ruthless like this, but quiet, and seems to be really friendly, and tells you they love the narrative of the game and they don't really play that much and they prefer painting and collecting to actual playing, and then they steamroll over you and you're like, what the heck happened? They've probably unlocked their army within the system that they're playing.